Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking into something I think, well, lots of us notice. Why does that intense curiosity we have as kids seem to just fade away as we grow up?
It's a really common feeling, isn't it?
Totally. And today, we're digging into it using some ideas from educational psychologist Susan Engel's work, specifically around the fading of curiosity. We'll also connect it to, what's happening inside our brains.
Right. The goal is really to understand why this happens. Why does that initial spark seem to dim?
Exactly. So where do we start? Engel has some observations, right?
Yeah, and what's pretty striking is when she says it starts, it's not like a midlife thing. Engel observes curiosity starting to decrease surprisingly early.
How early are we talking?
As young as 4 years old, kids begin asking fewer of those big, open-ended why questions.
4. Wow. That seems really young for curiosity to start fading.
It does, doesn't it? And instead, we start leaning more on familiar patterns, habits. Engel calls them our default settings.
Default settings. I like that. It sounds familiar. She quotes Henry James, too, doesn't she? Something about mental grooves.
That's right. James said, disinterested curiosity is past, the mental grooves and channels set. It really captures that feeling of our thinking becoming more fixed.
Which naturally leads to the brain, right? What's going on up there that sort of sets these grooves?
Okay, yeah, let's connect it to brain development. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. If you look at an infant's brain, it actually has more neural connections, more of those little wires between brain cells than an adult brain.
More connections. Really? I thought it would be the other way around.
Well, yes, more connections, but they're less efficient. Think of it as a huge network that isn't fully organized yet.
Ah, okay. So incredibly dense, maybe, but a bit chaotic. Is that why Engel describes a baby's perception as being super rich, but also kind of disorganized?
Precisely. They're taking everything in, but the system isn't streamlined yet. And this is where experience starts shaping things.
How so?
As kids learn and interact with the world, the pathways, those neural connections that get used a lot, they get stronger, faster, more automatic.
Right, like paths getting worn in a forest. The ones you use all the time become easy to follow.
Exactly. And these well-worn paths become our knowledge, our beliefs, our skills.
Okay, makes sense. But what about all those other connections? The ones that don't get used as much?
Well, this is key. The brain starts doing something called neural pruning.
Pruning, like trimming a bush.
Sort of, yeah. It gets rid of the connections that aren't being used frequently. It's basically the brain tidying up, becoming more efficient.
Efficient, okay.
Yeah.
So it's streamlining itself by getting rid of unused pathways.
Exactly. The brain is all about efficiency. It wants to put its resources where they're most needed for navigating our, typical environment and tasks.
Okay, I think I see the connection now. This pruning, making the brain more efficient for what we know, might also be trimming away some of the pathways that lead to those broad, open-ended questions.
That seems to be a big part of it. As the less used connections fade, the range of possibilities the brain naturally explores might narrow down a bit.
So the brain gets better at dealing with the familiar.
Right, it gets more specialized, which is essential for, developing expertise and just functioning effectively day to day.
But the trade-off might be
Yeah.
less of that wandering, shit for the stars kind of curiosity.
That seems to be one consequence, yes. A decrease in that very broad, almost undirected curiosity we see so strongly in young children.
Huh. It really makes you pause and think about your own curiosity levels now versus, say, when you were a kid. How often do you really ask why about fundamental stuff anymore? And seeing this link, this biological process in the brain, the wiring and the pruning, it gives a kind of physical basis for that feeling, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests this isn't just something psychological, but it's tied into the very way our brains mature and adapt. This journey from hyper-connectedness to a more streamlined state is normal development.
But it helps explain why that boundless childhood wonder might become a bit less prominent.
Exactly.
So the big takeaway here seems to be that the brain's amazing development, the very thing that helps us learn and become efficient adults, also kind of naturally plays a role in dialing back that wide-open curiosity.
Precisely. It's a fascinating balance, which leads us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener.
Go on.
If we understand this neurological tendency, this move towards efficiency that can sometimes narrow our focus, how might that knowledge change how we approach learning, or how we intentionally try to cultivate wonder and curiosity in our adult life? Something to think about.